Good evening to all of you in the UK. Good afternoon if you're watching us here live in Las Vegas. We are in the MGM Grand Garden Arena, ready for today's main event weigh-in. Oscar Valdez, Shakur Stevenson, two undefeated, unbeaten world champions. Tomorrow night we will have a unified world champion in the super featherweight division. Adam Smith is with me. We're just getting set for the undercard weigh-ins now. Well, they should commence in about 6 or 7 minutes. Adam Smith, let's set the scene here. The fans have made their way in. They're still filtering in now. The hotel is absolutely packed. The strip is absolutely packed. We're expecting some atmosphere today.
We are, and I just love it when the doors open and in rush the fans. And the Mexican fans all around us for Oscar Valdez. And they've been around Vegas for 20, 30 years. It's been incredible coming here. You know, the likes of Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales, those wonderful days with Juan Manuel Marquez and the mariachi bands and the Mexican fans. They bring such razzmatazz, such flavor to it. And you can see pockets of the Newark faithful as well for Shakur Stevenson, who believes this will be the sort of coming out party, the big launch into the world's elite. Already he's unbeaten in 17, but this is the opportunity to become a real star, I think, on Saturday night. But there's scores of Oscar Valdez fans here who are going to make this weigh-in very noisy, very difficult for Shakur. He won't mind that. He's got that look and that swagger, hasn't he? But Valdez, a real warrior, and he's going to have big fan support here.
Depending on who you talk to, some people say there's 600,000, some people say there's closer to 1 million extra people on the strip this week because of the NFL draft. There was a big technology conference as well, but also because of the fight itself. It's expected to be a near sellout with Walkups. It's set up for about 10,000 tomorrow night. If you've had the chance to come to this Garden Arena, 10,000 feels like 100,000. It's a bit like a sort of a bear pit, like a battleground. It's a real special arena. Let me ask you, when was the last time you were here? Can you remember?
Yeah, I was here for the second Fury Wilder fight, which was incredible. An amazing atmosphere that night, and I think Tyson Fury's best ever performance. I thought he was absolutely brilliant that evening because people thought after the knockdown in the first fight, right at the end, that he'd stay away from Deontay Wilder, but with Sugar Hill, he came forward, he was aggressive, he took the fight away from Wilder very quickly, and I thought it was a brilliant performance. One of the great performances from any British fighter on away soil, and of course then he went on to beat him again in the trilogy, and then last weekend we were at Wembley for the win over Dillian White. So I miss this place. It's 2 years since I've been here, but going back to the early days of Sky Sports, the mid-90s, when I used to come over, and as I said, I mentioned the Mexicans, but also the likes of Sugar Shane Mosley and Oscar De La Hoya and Roy Jones. And this place really, for me, brings three fighters. One is Mike Tyson. Originally this was Tyson's home. He was the king here. Then it became Floyd Mayweather. But you can't forget Ricky Hatton. You know, Ricky Hatton, when he fought Mayweather, when he fought Pacquiao, he just brought thousands and thousands. And
the weigh-in was here, wasn't it?
The weigh-in was here, yeah, it was. And just, 35, 40,000, I don't know how many the exact numbers were, but the strip was invaded. And people still talk about that today here. You know, you walk around and people say, hey, them British fans, them Ricky Hatton fans, and it was special. And then, of course, we have Mayweather Pacquiao here. Mayweather McGregor at T-Mobile, but based here. We've been in the MGM a lot, Andy. It's Mandalay Bay, the Golden Tower, of course, the Fight Tower, Caesar's Palace a little bit before the Sky Days, but I think the MGM really is the iconic home of boxing on the West Coast. And while the Madison Square Garden is home to a big fight this weekend with Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano on the East Coast, this is where it's all happening, out here in the desert. And I think on Fight Week it's particularly special. You mentioned the amount of people that have traveled here for the NFL draft, and that might not mean a great deal to people back home, but NFL fans obviously know how important that is as a precursor to the season. And it's a big razzmatazz thing. I believe even Wayne McCulloch, our old friend the Pocket Rocket from Belfast, his daughter Wyona is singing in it here. He lives in Vegas, Wayne. So it's a big thing, the NFL draft week. And to have a big fight as well, and obviously they know Canelo is in town next week, so this is almost like an hors d'oeuvre, but what an hors d'oeuvre. And for us, a super unification fight, for the super featherweights, and a brilliant one that Top Rank is providing for us in the early hours of Sunday. One not to be missed, this one.
People are talking about where this rivalry began between the two main event fighters. According to the promoters, Top Rank, a lot of what they put out this week is it's been 3 years in the making, but actually, probably from its inception, Shakur Stevenson's debut in 2017 was actually on Oscar Valdez's undercard. I'm sure if you ask Shakur, even at that point, he had eyes on the Mexican. What do we know about the two guys? Well, combined record of 47 victories, neither have tasted defeat. Controversy on perhaps the Valdez side with his performance against Robson Conceição, but his performance against Miguel Berchelt is perhaps the one that we should be talking about the most, where he produced arguably one of the knockouts, not just of the year, but of the last few years, with this unbelievable climbing left hook where Berchelt was on his way in and he timed it. My first question to you would be, what does Valdez do well that he can perhaps use against Stevenson? Obviously the first one is punch power, but you've got to be able to land it.
23 knockouts in his 30 wins. The Berchelt fight was a real standout on his excellent resume, Oscar Valdez. And I think Valdez hasn't had the credit, really, that he's deserved, a two-weight champion. He's not just a come-forward aggressor. He can box too, but I think certainly he likes to get on the front foot. He's a very tough guy. As he said, he's got a big left hand. And I think he's going to have to look to really cram Shakur Stevenson into the corners of the ring, break the distance down, get up close and personal. It was interesting, we were having dinner with Carl Moretti of Top Rank last night, and he was saying that he believes that maybe Valdez will box a little bit. We've heard that he'll try and box first 2 or 3 rounds. But we saw Dillian White try something like that against Tyson Fury. He went southpaw, trying to box his way in. I think if you don't do something that's natural to you, I think that can become quite problematic. So I'd like to see Valdez be clever early, but attackingly clever and aggressive, because I think if he lets Shakur get into a rhythm, I think it's going to be big problems for Valdez, because Stevenson's definitively the finer boxer. He's got more superior skills, and I think that he can box his way home here if he's given the chance. Valdez has got to not give him that opportunity and be on top of him. As Frank Bruno used to say, like a harbour shark, not give him any room, Andy. This, of course, where Bruno lost to Mike Tyson in their second fight. And, that was some night there. Tyson Holyfield's here. Phenomenal. As we wait and see the stage set at the on the scales.
The reason I stopped you is because the scales are now in place. All eyes will be on those scales. 130 pounds. We're dealing with pounds out here. That's the number that we're all looking out for. I'll step back in now, but the scales are in place. I don't think we're expecting famous last words of a fall. I don't think we're necessarily expecting weight problems. Why have I said it? I don't know. But both guys, the fact that both guys won world titles at the weight below, didn't move up because they were really, they weren't struggling profusely at that weight, but it was a natural progression to step up in weight. That is the next chapter in the story. Yeah. Valdez moved up when Shakur Stevenson became his mandatory. So naturally, Shakur Stevenson was saying, you're running from me. You're running from me. You're the fight I want next. The paths have now aligned. Oscar Valdez feels that this is the right fight for him. I think he was offered Emmanuel Navarrete as a fight, and he said, no, I don't want to take a fight in between and risk anything. I want to fight Shakur Stevenson. Shakur Stevenson flips that and says, he tried to get out of this fight. He wanted to fight Navarrete. It was the fans and Eddie Reynoso, his trainer, who forced him into this. What do you think? What do you think? The $1 million question. What do you think?
What do I think? I think that Oscar Valdez knew he was going to have to fight Shakur Stevenson at some stage. Yes, it's been in the melting pot a long time, but I think that's one of the reasons that he ended up going to Eddie Reynoso, because he knew the super fights would eventually come. Shakur Stevenson has been a wonderful amateur Olympic silver medalist, and he's been a little bit hot and cold with some of the performances so far, but he's undefeated. He's never looked in serious bother at all in the ring, and I'm going to nail my flag to the mast pretty quickly and early here. I'm not commentating tomorrow, so I think this is Shakur Stevenson's defining night today. And I think that he's going to shine here at the Garden tomorrow night. I believe he's going to go on and become a 3-weight champion. I think he'll move to lightweight eventually, but I think he'll become king of the super featherweights. And I say that because he's 24 years old. He's got immense self-belief. but he's got a style that I think is going to prove really problematic for Valdez. I think Valdez has got, everything in his locker, in his arsenal, to make the majority of fighters in and around world level look fairly average. But I think Shakur Stevenson has star quality. The big question mark is Shakur just a pretty boy, a pretty fighter? When it gets tough, he's going to be found wanting. You might get some of those questions answered tomorrow night, but I just feel that if he can get into the fight quickly, Stevenson, and establish that beautiful jab he's got and the lovely ring movement, and I think he looks up to Andre Ward, who is such a great defensive fighter, such a wonderful boxing technician. Floyd Mayweather as well, who was once at super featherweight a knockout puncher. Remember when he took out Angel Manfredi and he was cutting a swathe through the nine-stone.
This is before Money Made. This is before Money Made. This is Pretty Boy Floyd.
Pretty Boy Floyd, and he was a pretty big knockout puncher. But he knew that by going up in weight, he was going to have to redefine his style, the shoulder roll, the defensive movement. It wasn't to everyone's appreciation. It was personally to me, Andy and Ian Dark and Glenn McCrory and Jim Watt, who had the pleasure and privilege, Bob Mead too as well, of coming to Vegas and watching Mayweather up close. And I think still the greatest fighter of our generation, Floyd. And I think, Andre Ward and Floyd Mayweather are the two fighters that Shakur looks up to. I'm not saying Shakur's going to be as good as either, but I think that he's got the potential to be very good, and he's got the body structure to go up another weight. I'm looking at Shakur Stevenson, and I think Top Rank are as well, although Bob Arum is split because he wouldn't sit in the middle of Valdez and Stevenson yesterday at the presser because, he's promoted both of their fights and he adores them both. But I think that there's a sort of underlying feeling here that this is Shakur Stevenson's, night, his headline night in Vegas, and I think we'll be hearing a lot more about him after this fight.
You say that you're not saying that, but there are a number of people that do think that he is on the way to becoming one of the biggest names in the sport, to a future pound-for-pound great.
Yep.
You put that to Shakur, and I think deep down he believes that he is going to get there. But he was stung by that tag. He was labelled boring, and sometimes being really, really good, being exceptional, isn't enough in professional boxing. You've only got to look at the likes of Guillermo Rigondeaux, one of the best skill sets in all of modern-day boxing. You couldn't lay a glove on him. Doesn't always necessarily mean the entertainment business.
You're absolutely right, but I think it's the difference between Shakur Stevenson and Guillermo Rigondeaux.
Well, one is the language barrier.
Yeah, as well, but I think, Shakur's got that star quality about him, about his persona, and also he hits quite hard. He's not a powder puncher. He's a beautiful boxer, and that's what we know him best for, the fluency. But he can hit too, and I believe that Valdez coming onto him could make Shakur, it could improve that power tomorrow night.
The reason I started telling that story is because after he was labelled boring, mostly people felt that there were opportunities in fights where he was coasting, where he, rather than put his foot on the gas and look for a finish, he was happy to win on points. He didn't necessarily look for the finishes against Jeremiah Nakatila.
Agreed.
But
I think that's the worry, that maybe if it's all too easy for him tomorrow night, he coasts, and that's where the difference is. You're right. That's when you've got to seal the show, and that's what Mayweather did to the likes of Gatti. And I know Conor McGregor was a completely different theatre, but when it got to a point where he'd almost carried him enough, bang, he took him out. And I think that's what Shakur has got to do tomorrow. Oscar Valdez wins this fight, if he does, by knockout, by sort of late stoppage. I doubt he'll get it on points, but you never know with the Vegas judging and the aggression. But for me, Shakur is by far the more superior, technical boxer. And I think it's going to be really interesting, because if Valdez tries to box him or get outboxed, I think if he puts the pressure on him, I think that, Shakur will have to find himself, into a rhythm and maneuver himself early. But I think once he does that, if he can start picking him off, I think he might possibly find that stoppage that will rocket him into that pound-for-pound list. I think a win on points for Shakur Stevenson is most likely tomorrow night, but I think that if you can find that stoppage there, that could be the icing on the cake, the Ring Magazine belt, and I believe, he could become one of the big new stars for America and globally. He's 24, of course, and plenty of time, but look, put all that to one side. This is a big fight for him to win. It's the biggest fight of Shakur Stevenson's life. Oscar Valdez has a real opportunity to shut people up, shut the Stevenson camp up, shut the critics up, shut the bookies up. He's the more experienced man. He's not lost in 30 fights, and he's done nothing wrong in his career. Ask Scott Quigg how good he is. Valdez is a very, very good fighter. I just believe that Shakur Stevenson could, I'm not saying definitively, Andy, at the moment, but could become a great.
Last one on that. You can't look past the fact that Shakur Stevenson, for all of those questions and criticism, did an absolute demolition job on Jamel Herring, one of the toughest men around. He didn't really win in 30 seconds, 40 seconds of the fight. He never really was in it. Shakur Stevenson put it on him, punched through him. Yes, he was stopped on his feet, but he took a bit of a hellacious beating. On the other side of that, you just touched on it, the critics. Look out for this today. This is Oscar Valdez, and that's not me telling Adam to shut up. You know, it's not. But he was stung by the critics that gave him no hope. His idols, Barrera, Julio Cesar Chavez.
All of our idols. Andy,
Marquez.
I mean, we love them.
But they criticised him and didn't pick him to beat Bashel.
Yeah.
They said that he wasn't big enough, they said he didn't punch hard enough, and they said he didn't have it in him. So when he did it, he was so motivated by that. Watch our shoulder programming that came from our hosts here at Top Rank, Hecho in Mexico, Made in Mexico, and Blood, Sweat and Tears. And they tell the story of this. All of the poses in the ring afterwards were shush. Don't question me, and I wonder if we might see that today. I get the impression that Oscar Valdez is sick of being questioned.
And I think Oscar Valdez as well is one of those slow burner of fighters. We saw it with Juan Manuel Marquez. Eric Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera hit the top much earlier than Juan Manuel Marquez did. You know, Barrera was fantastic. He had that brilliant left hook, and then he adapted his style later on to beat Nassim Hamid and others. And Morales, of course, a brilliant world super bantamweight champion, possibly the most explosive and best ever. But Juan Manuel Marquez took his time, and that reminds me a bit of Oscar Valdez.
I'm just looking over the our colleagues at, I'm not sure if that's TV Azteca. Their pundits have just started to make their way. They're silhouetted by the bright lights here at the moment, but they're getting a terrific reception from the Mexican fans. As you would expect. I keep turning round because I hope
JMM is in. I saw Marco Antonio Barrera last week at Wembley. Eric Morales, who now they were enemies for so long, Andy. They hated each other, and now they're okay. Their wives got them together. They're good mates. But JMM, Juan Manuel Marquez. I don't know if you spent time with him. What a lovely, lovely guy. Very bright, and I hope he's over there somewhere amongst the mix, because I love to see him.
Well, my first trip here was Bradley Marquez.
Yeah.
Timothy Bradley's here working for ESPN just out of stage right. The reason we keep looking behind is because we are in the hands of our hosts here, ESPN and Top Rank.
And we're in the atmosphere.
We're in the atmosphere. But people keep making their way towards the stage as if something's going to happen, and then they keep walking back. So stay with us.
I don't know if you can see.
Let me step out of the way.
You can see Carl Moretti there on the stage. Carl Moretti is one of the head honchos at Top Rank. He used to be with Main Events. Carl is an expert with these young fighters. He was telling us last night that Keishan Davis is going to be an absolute superstar, and he believes that Shakur Stevenson will be, but he is a little worried that he might coast this fight. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if he's in control after 8-9 rounds. Bob Arum up on the dais, now 90 years of age, the legendary promoter, and he didn't make it over to England last week, but he's here for Oscar Valdez and Shakur Stevenson, two fighters he's believed in, and he's put them together, and that's fantastic for boxing.
Well, if you are just joining us, we're not far away from the undercard weigh-ins commencing. As Adam already explained, Keishan Davis is someone that we've got very, very high hopes for. Nico Ali Walsh as well, the grandson of the greatest Muhammad Ali, will be weighing in today as well. We had the chance to catch up with him earlier in the week down at his family home. He's a Las Vegas resident and one of the nicest, I don't want to sound disparaging, one of the nicest kids in boxing. I say kids because he's only 21 years old, and for a Vegas debut, what a terrific opportunity for him.
A fantastic opportunity for Nico, and what a wonderful family he's got. His mum Rashida, his dad Bob, and they were so welcoming in their Vegas home the other day. Nico, very, very smart kid. He's about to graduate from the university here in business management and entrepreneurial schemes, I think. He's he's a decent fighter. He didn't have a great amateur career, and he's certainly not one of the ones you believe is definitively going to become a world champion or anything, but it's a wonderful story. You know, his grandfather, the greatest of all time, and the first fighter that Bob Arum promoted in Muhammad Ali, and now he's got his grandson, and all the history and the genes that are passed down. And we're not saying Nico's going to be any sort of world beater. It's a long way. He's a novice. He's an unbeaten young professional, and he's living a dream, and that dream is that he wants to take it as far as he can. He's going to lap up every bit of his Vegas debut. He lives here, and let's see how far he can go. It's you've got to have a tagline, you've got to have a story as well in boxing, and that's some story, isn't it? Grandfather of the greatest, and he's got all the paraphernalia up in his house, and he wore Muhammad Ali shorts on his professional debut. Just fantastic, and what a nice kid. Yeah, you're right, Andy.
Terrific story, and I've told it once on air this week already. I'm not sure if I should be telling it, but when Nico Ali Walsh went to Bob Arum, after he left the meeting, he decided that he wanted to turn pro. But in a number of ways, he wanted to drop the Ali tag because he didn't want the pressure of it. But here we go. Let's get over to our Master of Ceremonies, Mark Chinook. Can see that the first of our undercard fighters are making their way to the side of the stage. Fighters will be weighing in undercard order. And there's some fans in the house. Okay, so we are not far away from our first weigh-in here. You can see that the fighters are now ready on stage. We're here live from the MGM Garden Arena, where tomorrow night Oscar Valdez and Shakur Stevenson will find out who the best super featherweight is in the world. Tomorrow night we will have a unified junior lightweight.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome inside the MGM Grand Garden Arena here in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. This is boxing. This is Top Rank, presented by Hall of Fame boxing promoter Mr. Bob Arum, sponsored by Boost Mobile, Money is Power, and Top Gun Maverick, starring Tom Cruise, only in theaters May 27th. It all goes down tomorrow, Saturday, April 30th. The undercards begin at 4 p.m. Pacific on ESPN+. And then we move over to the network ESPN Deportes at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Again, a huge battle. The WBC, the WBO, Ring Magazine Junior Lightweight Championships of the World on the line. Oscar Valdez, Shakur Stevenson, tomorrow, April 30th, from right here inside MGM Grand Garden Arena in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. We have a stacked undercard. We're going to get them weighed in right now. Our first bout is scheduled for 4 rounds in the welterweight division. Please welcome from Chicago, Illinois, Antoine Cobb, and his opponent from Atlanta, Georgia, Jalen "No Plan" Phillips. First on the scale from Chicago, Illinois, Antoine Cobb. $143.6 for Cobb, 143.6. His opponent from Atlanta, Georgia, Jalen "No Plan" Phillips. $142.4 for No Plan Phillips. 142.4. This bout scheduled for 4 rounds in the welterweight division. Antoine Cobb, Jalen No Playin' Phillips, 4 rounds in the welterweight division. Our next bout scheduled for 4 rounds in the lightweight division. Please welcome from Buenos Aires, Argentina, Luciano Ramos, and his opponent from Cleveland, Ohio, Abdullah Mason. First on the scale, from Buenos Aires, Argentina, Luciano Ramos.
Well, if you're just joining us in the UK, thank you very much for staying up. I hope you're enjoying it. We're in the midst of the undercard weigh-ins at the moment. This is Luciano Ramos, the lightweight from Buenos Aires, Argentina, taking on Abdullah Mason. We've got the undercard fighters weighing in first, and then we'll have a very
137.8, 137.8 for Luciano Ramos. His opponent from Cleveland, Ohio, Abdullah Mason.
And this is the part of the night where we all learn how much a set of boxer shorts weighs. And a hell of a lot of pressure on the 2 towel men here.
136.4, 136.4 for Abdullah Mason. This bout scheduled for 4 rounds in the lightweight division. From Buenos Aires, Argentina, Luciano Ramos. From Cleveland, Ohio, Abdullah Mason. 4 rounds in the lightweight division.
Luciano Ramos bringing that heat.
Our next bout scheduled for 6 rounds in the middleweight division. Please welcome from Augusta, Georgia, Anthony Hanna, and his opponent from Alexandria, Virginia, Troy the Transformer Isley.
Nice story here. When I interviewed Keyshawn Davis
First
earlier in the week,
on the scale,
he said enough talking about me. The man that you really
Hanna.
want to focus on, the man that you really want to look out for is Troy Isley, the former Olympian, who's 4-0 with 2 knockouts. This is his opponent, Anthony Hanna.
156.8, 156.8 for Anthony Hanna. His opponent from Alexandria, Virginia, Troy the Transformer Isley.
Journeyman Anthony Hanna. This guy is going to have his work cut out, though. This is a real hot prospect, Andy.
Yep. If I had $1 for everybody that's told me this week that Troy Isley is a man to watch out for,
157.4 for the Transformer Isley.
In that Olympic squad of amateurs that have turned over, that are making their way in the pros, everybody says, don't sleep on Troy Isley. Gentleman in the hat and glasses there, Coach Al. Anybody that's been following our journey with Michaela Mayer,
this bout scheduled for 6 rounds in the middleweight division. From Augusta, Georgia, Anthony Hanna. From Alexandria, Virginia, Troy the Transformer Isley. 6 rounds in the middleweight division.
Not much between them. They're both 5'10". That's a 6
Our
rounder
next
at
bout
middleweight.
scheduled
Look
for
forward to
8
that one
rounds
tomorrow.
in the junior lightweight division. Please welcome from Dallas, Texas, Alexis Pero del Bosque, and his opponent from Las Vegas, Nevada, Andres Savage Cortez. First on the scale, Alexis Pero del Bosque. 131.6 for Alexis del Bosque. His opponent from Las Vegas, Nevada, Andres Savage Cortez. $131.8 for Andres Savage Cortez.
This is an 8-rounder at junior lightweight.
This bout scheduled for 8 rounds in the junior lightweight division. From Dallas, Texas, Alexis Pero del Bosque. From Las Vegas, Nevada, Andres Savage Cortez. 8 rounds in the junior lightweight division. Our next bout scheduled for 8 rounds in the lightweight division. Please welcome from New Orleans, Louisiana, Jeremy Zero Hill, and his opponent from Fontana, California, Raymond Danger Murataya. First on the scale, Jeremy Zero Hill. 134 for Jeremy Zero Hill. His opponent from Fontana, California, Raymond Danger Murataya. 134.8 for Raymond Danger Murataya. 134.8. This bout is scheduled for 8 rounds in the lightweight division. From New Orleans, Louisiana, Jeremy Zero Hill. From Fontana, California, Raymond Danger Murataya. 8 rounds in the lightweight division. All right, ladies and gentlemen, in attendance, that concludes our undercard weigh-in. We are going to pause for about 5 to 10 minutes, get set to go live on ESPN with Max on Boxing. We will be weighing in the 3 remaining fights, which will take place at 7 p.m. Pacific tomorrow on ESPN. Sit tight, 5-10 minute break before we go live on ESPN. Thank you.
Okay, well, stay with us. As you heard, there'll be about a 5 or 10 minute intermission. That concludes the weigh-in part, the non-televised part of the undercard. We're looking forward to Nico Walsh and Keyshawn Davis. Quick word on both. Keyshawn Davis particularly a phenomenal talent. Very, very high hopes even at this stage of his career. Olympic silver medalist, one of those that fell between the gaps that he could box pro and then go back to the amateurs. And now he's back, obviously, as a pro full-time. That amateur journey is finished now and ended with a silver medalist. Top Rank have got high hopes for him. He looks like a talent. Very, very close with Shakur Stevenson. Very, very close with Terence Bud Crawford. If he follows that trajectory, he'll be on some path.
And you like the story, don't you, very much?
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah, Keyshawn is a tremendous talent. And I bring back the name of the sort of maestro at Top Rank, Carl Moretti, who he really is hot on Keyshawn. He thinks that he's going to go all the way. I think he's got a huge amount of talent. I think he's got a lot of dedication inside him. He seems to be, he carries himself well. I think he knows what this business is about. He's got his brothers. He's still that relationship he's got with Shakur and the whole sort of US team. And, you know, they're coming through now, and this is their time. I think he's got real ability. I think he's got punch power. I think he's got a smart head on him as well. And I think that's really important as you come through these sort of early educational fights. But I think they want to really go fast with Keyshawn. I think they wanted to move him quickly in that packed division, and it is packed, it is competitive. I know that he wants Brian Garcia, and you know, he wants it tomorrow. They've got to take their time to sort of building him slightly, but I think Carl wants to sort of, Carl Moretti wants to take him off the leash sooner rather than later, so expect fireworks tomorrow.
Yeah, a simple Google search will call up the story that I'm talking about. When he was a young man, guided heavily by his mother, Wanda, he did suffer from some mental health issues that he sought help for. The story that he tells is that by experiencing something like that very earlier in his career, long before his professional boxing journey started, it gave him this sort of inner resilience that he feels that now he's in the situation that he's in. He feels like he's been through the trials and tribulations that some people might experience later on in their journey. He feels like it's put him in good stead. But it's a tremendous story. He's a big mental health advocate. I urge everybody out there to go and Google that story and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But he cuts just such a confident figure. He's a brilliant communicator. He's so articulate. And he's one of three boxing brothers, DB3. You'll see this signal today. The three boxing Davis brothers. One is a professional, one is an amateur, and Keyshawn really is leading the charge with all of them. This should be a good fight for him tomorrow night. We've got high hopes for him, and I know Top Rank, as you just said there, echo those sentiments. Nico Ali Walsh, we talked about him a little bit before. To finish the story that I was talking about earlier, he actually thought about just turning pro as Nico Walsh, leaving the Ali out of it. You can imagine what Bob Arum said to that. There's no way that I'm going to promote you without Ali in his name. But we met his family, didn't we? Bob Walsh and Rashida. Yeah. Ali is actually his middle name, but yes, I saw them earlier. But what a nice guy, and as you said, university educated. He's got his cap and gown that he's graduating next week. He even tried to hide it from his lecturers, because what he said was, I don't want my lecturers, who might have been fans of my granddad, giving me preferential treatment, treating me any differently. But what he did say is, when he started appearing on ESPN and Top Rank shows, when he started appearing on Top Rank and ESPN shows, some of his lecturers actually, and his university professors started messaging him and said, look, if you need any help or anything like that, but he's got such a level head on those shoulders, because there are external pressures when you are the grandson of the greatest athlete of all time.
Do you know, when we spent time, all of us, you know, our cameraman Ollie, yourself, me, were welcomed in to the household of the Walshes here in Vegas, and you'd never have thought that there was any sort of, I don't know, look, Muhammad Ali's the greatest sportsman, one of the greatest men that's ever lived. I mean, what he did, transcending the sport, transcending the world, was phenomenal. I mean, that's even outside of boxing. But you went to that house and you just never know. I mean, yes, there's some paraphernalia, some pictures, but the humility in that house is just wonderful to see. Really loving parents. He's been brought up so well. And, you know, he's just a down-to-earth kid who's, you know, getting a degree, and he's living a dream, and he can fight. How good he is, I don't think he knows how good he is yet, but he's winning these novice fights. Let's not get too carried away. You know, Keyshawn Davis is somebody that's going to go a long way. I think we know that. Shakur Stevenson, you know, cut from that same cloth. Nico Ali Walsh not, you know, very sort of basic amateur career. And I think, you know, you look at the likes of, I don't know, your Conor Benz, your Chris Eubank Jr.'s back home, your Campbell Hattons, with that pressure of, you know, the father, the famous father. This is the famous grandfather. So, you know, it's a little bit more distant, the relationship, but there is pressure on him. And of course, Bob Arum wanted that tagline. Bob Arum is the promoter, and I think Nico knows that that's what, you know, he's got to do. He's got to play up to that. But what a nice young man, and you wish him well, and I think he just wants to be treated like any other fighter. Just give me a chance and let me go.
Well, he told an amazing story where he was like, you know, my life isn't any different to anybody else in my circumstances. So my follow-up question was, you know, tell us about some of your earliest boxing memories and stories from when you were an amateur. And he said, well, I was boxing in the Las Vegas championships, and Mike Tyson's wife called Kiki called my mother Rashida, and he said, oh, Mike would like to come down and watch Nico in his amateur fight. And I had to stop him and just say, I'm sorry, but your life isn't as normal as everybody else's. Mike Tyson making an effort to come down and watching him as an amateur. But he deals with the pressure very, very differently, and he looks at it like this. I've always been the grandson of Muhammad Ali. It's not something new to me. It might be new to you guys to meet me, and you might think it's a big deal, but I've always had to deal with it. I don't know anything else. So it's quite a nice sort of a balancing act there. But yeah, we shouldn't have favourites, but I really do wish him well on his professional journey.
It's no question. You know, you talk about the nice guys in boxing, and most fighters are, and we work with one that is often called the nicest guy in boxing. The other week in Anthony, $1 Million Crawler. No one has a bad word to say about Anthony, do they? No one has a bad word to say about Nico. He really is just a very, very pleasant young man, very easy to chat to, very down to earth. It just hasn't gone to his head. I mean, he's got the most famous of all grandfathers, and you know, he knows that he's never going to emulate even an eighth of the success that Muhammad Ali had. But I think for him, he wants to charter his own journey, and hopefully that'll lead him into, you know, maybe American fights, intercontinental, possibly even world title shots if they guide him right. But it's a long way to go, and you know, there's a lot of boxing to do in between then and now.
Let's flick back to the main event. The big screens in the arena at the moment have been showing some of the highlights of both fighters. One of the fights that has been shown a couple of times is Oscar Valdez against Scott Quigg. Now, that fight, very interesting to us. One, because
you were there, weren't you?
Well, I don't think I've dried out.
Yeah.
It was they had a month's worth of rain in one single night in Carson, so much so that there were question marks whether or not the fight could go ahead. They said as long as the rain doesn't start blowing under the canvas and onto the ring, we'll be fine. Well, within about an hour, the ring canvas was absolutely soaked and panic-stricken people running around at ringside. But it was synonymous with Valdez's story at the moment, because he broke his jaw, or had his jaw broken by Scott Quigg in the 5th round. They couldn't actually even remove the gum shield at times, such was the break, so they decided to leave it in during rounds. I mean, the pain, he said it wasn't the pain from the break of the jaw, it was the pain from the fact that I might lose my unbeaten record. In the blood, sweat and tears.
There's a warrior talking.
Oh, my life, yeah. I mean, in
They've just seen Nico.
Yeah, Nico Ali Walsh is just at the side of the stage. So I'll finish this story very, very quickly. In the Blood, Sweat and Tears episodes, you see his father, who was very, very teary, desperate to pull him out of that fight. He wanted to pull Oscar Valdez out. He couldn't even speak to him. He said, in my son's eyes, I knew I couldn't pull him out. He pulled himself through, won the fight, and the rest is history. He's with a new training team now, but if anybody questions Oscar Valdez's heart, you've only got to look at that fight. If he didn't quit in that fight, makes you wonder if he will ever quit. Shakur Stevenson has said this week, I will make you quit.
Well, we'll see. It's a big, bold statement from Shakur Stevenson. And if he does that, that'll be because of the precision of his tools. Because I think Shakur's got wonderful boxing technique and quality. And, you know, if he scythes up Oscar Valdez, that'll be some performance. But there's no questioning the heart and the guts and the courage of Oscar Valdez. There's also, Andy, no questioning the quality. He's a world champion in 2 weight divisions. He's undefeated. You know, that's assured. It's whether he's a pound-for-pound fighter, whether he's an elite fighter, whether he can become a true great. And that's something we'll learn tomorrow night. His team believe that. Eddie Reynoso believes that. I'm not so sure. I think that Shakur Stevenson is the one that could elevate himself from tomorrow night, from that platform. But I tell you what, if Valdez beats Shakur Stevenson, I for one will put Oscar Valdez in that pound-for-pound list, because that will be some achievement.
Incidentally, who is at the top of your pound-for-pound list at the moment, judging by Tyson Fury's performance last week? He must be near the top.
Tyson Fury
no, they don't.
They always got a 4 or 5. But
you know, you've got your
Spence, Crawford, Canelo,
Inoue. I think for a number of people, Canelo is still top of the tree there. Would you agree with that?
I mean, he's the superstar, isn't he? I absolutely adore watching Canelo. And if the flight doesn't take off on time, I might stay here for another week so I can see him. Canelo's absolute stardust. He's wonderful. I remember him fighting in the early days here in Vegas, and there were high
First
hopes,
on the scale from Denver, Colorado, Alejandro
so I think for me, him, maybe Terence
Ibarra.
Crawford up there. But yeah, the winner of tomorrow night is going to be in the bottom half of that, but he's going to be on there, and Tyson Fury has to be.
Alejandro Ibarra on the scale.
160.4 for Alejandro Ibarra. His opponent from Las Vegas, Nevada, the legend lives on, Nico Ali Walsh. 159.2 for Nico Ali Walsh.
What a reception, Andy, for Nico.
And an obvious tribute to his grandfather there. He raises his hands aloft and looks to the skies. Nico 4-0 with 3 knockouts, a Las Vegas resident, and this will be his first professional outing in the city where he now resides. That will be part of our coverage live on Sky Sports.
Our next bout scheduled
night
for 8 rounds in the lightweight division. Please welcome from Ensenada, Mexico, Esteban El Toy Sanchez, and his opponent from Norfolk, Virginia, Keyshawn, the businessman Davis. First on the scale, Esteban El Toy Sanchez. $136.6 for Sanchez, 136.6. His opponent from Norfolk, Virginia, Keyshawn, the businessman Davis.
The businessman is here for strictly business reasons only. Keyshawn Davis from Norfolk.
136.2, 136.2 for the businessman
there is
Davis.
The signal, DB3. Davis Brothers 3. And this phenomenal talent really could be something special in the sport of boxing. An Olympic silver medalist. 4-0 as a pro. Keyshawn Davis takes on Esteban Sanchez, a man with 18 wins against a single defeat, 8 of them coming inside the distance, compared to Keyshawn's 4 professional fights. There is a big gulf in experience, but there also could be a big gulf in quality if the rumours are to be believed.
Yeah, but it's a big ask, isn't it, in such an early educational fight to go in with a guy with a record like that. That shows how much belief they have.
Sorry, apologies, Adam. Let's step straight back in.
It shows what belief they have in Keyshawn. They really do think he's going a long way.
I've got to do a public apology to our cameraman there. A little bit of chicanery that I just jumped back in. Sorry about that.
He's used to working with you, Andy.
He's used to working with amateurs, is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying? So that concludes our undercard weigh-ins. They've rattled through it, so all that is left now is for the big one. Oscar Valdez and Shakur Stevenson. If you're just joining us, where have you been? I know the time difference doesn't help us, but this is a huge fight this week. Obviously, so much of the focus from our point of view, because we're here, is on this fight. There is also a huge fight over in New York. The first time 2 females have headlined the Madison Square Garden. Katie Taylor, who we have a terrific relationship with, against Amanda Serrato. Just want to send Katie and her team all the best of wishes. Good luck tomorrow night. What a huge fight. Obviously, someone you know particularly well for the sport of boxing, but women's boxing in particular. It is a real landmark event and something that we hope to follow sometime later in the year with Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall.
Yeah, I became very close to Katie Taylor, Andy, over the last few years. Obviously an icon from Ireland, an incredible amateur, and then turned professional when Eddie said let's go, and we had a wonderful ride with Katie. Fantastic times when she won the world lightweight title, unified it. Brilliant occasions in New York, in Boston, in Britain, of course, and the Irish fans who love us so much, and on the East Coast. And what a night she's got tomorrow at the Madison Square Garden in New York against Amanda Serrano. I was there commentating when she fought Cindy in Boston. My kids look up to Katie Taylor. She's an inspiration. She's a fantastic ambassador, an incredible athlete. And Amanda Serrano, multi-weight world champion. And she's been terrific for the sport too. And it's a fantastic fight. And it's one of those, Andy, that it's happening on the East Coast. We're here on the West Coast. And it's a super fight here, don't get me wrong, with this unification between Valdez and Stevenson. But it's a time where you really want to be in two places at once. And I'm gutted I'm not in New York. I think it's going to be a great occasion there. I'm sure Madison Square Garden will pay homage to two fabulous females. And look what they're doing. They're laying the foundations for the likes of Savannah Marshall, Tasha Jonas, Chantel Cameron, and the new gen that we've got, Caroline Dubois and Lauren Price and Karis Hartingsall. They're fantastic sort of crop coming through from the Olympics. And, you know, Katie, before her there was Jane Couch way back in the day, I remember well. Jane never got the recognition, but Katie has, and Katie's a real flag bearer for boxing, and I think it's going to be a monumental occasion in New York, as well as obviously here in the MGM. And it just shows, Andy, that men, women, male, female, it doesn't matter. Great fights are great fights, and we're going to get them both sides of America tomorrow night, and that's just what the fans can love and admire. And it's just great for the sport.
That's at MSG, the Garden. This is at the Garden Arena at the MGM Grand. We're not far away from the main event weigh-in. Oscar Valdez takes on Shakur Stevenson, two unbeaten professionals, a combined record of 47 straight victories, 2 crowns, 1 king. But what about the draw? Nobody's talking about that. The madness of Vegas, anything could happen. Have a look at those odds. I'm going to make my way to the sports book to check on the odds later. I always leave it till the later part of the week, because when the fans turn up, it doesn't really matter what the odds are. They all throw their money at it and the odds become completely skewed. Let me stand out of the way. Here comes Oscar Valdez to the side of the stage. El Fiero Oscar Valdez from Nogales, Mexico. 30-0, the holder of that beautiful green and gold belt that you can see there. You can also see just in the corner of the shot, the Ring Magazine belt will also be up for grabs. So 3 belts on the line tomorrow night. The WBO, the Ring Magazine, and the WBC. We're just waiting for our hosts on ESPN to be ready, but this is the bit that we've all been waiting for, the tension before both fighters step onto that scales. The magic number that we're waiting to hear, that we're all hoping for, is 130 pounds. And straight away, the difference is noticeable from the undercard. The volume and the tension has ratcheted up here. All of the camera phones are out. Everybody is focused on the two men who really haven't enjoyed being in each other's company this week. This will be the last time they will see each other before the ring empties out tomorrow night, and Oscar Valdez will be across the ring from his great rival Shakur Stevenson.
Look how relaxed Shakur Stevenson is.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome inside the MGM Grand Garden Arena here in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. This is boxing. This is Top Rank, presented by Hall of Fame boxing promoter Mr. Bob Arum, sponsored by Boost Mobile, Power is Money, and Top Gun Maverick. Starring Tom Cruise, only in theaters May 27th. It's scheduled for 12 rounds for the WBO, WBC, Ring Magazine Junior Lightweight Championships of the World. Here he is, presented in association with Antonio Leonard Promotions, the 2016 Olympic silver medalist, the 2-weight world champion, the reigning defending WBO champion of the world, representing Brick City, Newark, New Jersey, Shakur Stevenson.
To be expected, a mixed reception for the 24-year-old from Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah, boos all around for Shakur Stevenson from this heavily Mexican crowd. He doesn't care one iota.
Okay, so it looks like on first attempt he is over the weight limit. They're bringing in a screen now. We didn't get an announcement of the original weight, but let's see. Stevenson behind the curtain, all eyes on that scale.
130, 130 for the WBO champ Shakur Stevenson. 130.
I think they knew he was going to be very tight, which is why they brought the guard in. But Shakur Stevenson,
he is the two-weight world champion. He is the reigning defending WBC champion of the world. From Nogales, Sonora, Mexico, Oscar Valdez.
What a reception for Oscar Valdez, the WBC champion from Nogales, Mexico.
129.6 for Valdez.
129.6 inside the limit, no problems for the Mexican, who is terrifically supported here in the MGM Grand.
This is fabulous. Reminds me of the days with Barrera and Morales. The Mexicans have come out for Oscar Valdez, and Shakur Stevenson in America. Very hostile territory. He stands there and smiles. He's watched Floyd Mayweather a lot in these sort of circumstances because, of course, Mayweather fought Jose Luis Castillo a couple of times. He knows what it's like to be not the underdog in terms of the fight, but the underdog in terms of the fans. And he looks very relaxed and confident.
He can't help but smile, even with everything that's on the line. The guys working hard to get their photographs here. Both guys want to go straight at it in the head-to-head. Let's just see as they turn and face each other now.
Huge unification. There's been words in the build-up, but they're keeping nice and tight here. There's the respect I was talking about earlier. It's edgy, it's tense, but this is high quality. And this is for the super featherweight mantle. Look at the pair of them.
Whereas the two went at it with the trash talk yesterday, not a single word uttered between the two at the head-to-head. Just a lengthy stare down. Perhaps the time has come that all the talking has to stop. Let's just step back in here and just watch events unfold over our shoulder.
Icy, wasn't it? All the noise, the bedlam around us, the Mexican fans in touching distance of us here on this stage. But down there, the two of them undefeated in 47 fights between them, and a fantastic tension, which is, boxing at its best. There is that respect, nothing boiled over. Really, really good to see.
What did you make of Shakur Stevenson on the scales? The only reason I say that is it's obvious, as you said, well picked up. They must have known he was tight because they had the shield pre-prepared. So he weighed in naked.
There's a bit of fuss because Terence Crawford's just walked in.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
He's now my pound-for-pound king.
Yes, well.
Because he's about 5 yards away.
Well, for a second I thought that I was getting shouted at, but no, it's a pound-for-pound great. What an easy mistake to make. I just wondered what you thought there. Facially, we're a long way away here. We're perhaps looking for something that doesn't exist. He did look a little bit tight, a little bit dry on the face. I don't know, changed from where we saw him yesterday and the day before. A suggestion that maybe he has taken a bit of weight off, or am I looking for something that simply doesn't exist? It's weigh-in day, of course they're going to look tight.
He's slightly taller than Oscar Valdez, 5'7". He's got the frame to go up to lightweight. I said earlier that I believe he will become a three-weight champion, and I think that will happen at some point. But he'll be fine at super feather. Shakur would have made it absolutely fine. Yeah, bang on. Ultimately, stripped naked doesn't mean anything. I think that they have plenty of time to rehydrate. It's 2:15 on a Friday. They've got 18 hours. No problems.
Yeah. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed that. It was a little bit wild at times, but why did we expect anything different? So make sure you join us in the early hours.
We lost Terence Crawford. I was going to try and get him up here, but
in the nicest possible way. I don't think he was too interested in coming and talking to us. Haven't got anywhere near him all week. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for staying up tomorrow night, early hours.
It's going to be great.
It is going to be great. I just think that we are being blessed here with two great fighters in their prime, in their division, number one against number two.
Yep.
There can only be one winner.
Who wins?
I haven't got a clue. No idea. Don't know. That's why I'm so desperate to watch it. But really make sure you put that pot of coffee on, the energy drinks. I'm laughing because we're on the side of the stage and a million people are trying to get through at once at the moment. Don't worry, we're not suffering a minor earthquake here. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Join us tomorrow night, early hours, 2 a.m. I think it is for you guys there. It's a little bit earlier here for us with the time difference. But I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for staying with us and enjoy the rest of your night. Good evening from Adam and I.